Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the KIWIEARS FORTEZA. This is still one of the latest IEMs that they have launched, a 2+1, so it's two dynamic drivers and a single BA. The dynamic drivers are mounted in a clamshell configuration, which some people call as isobaric, but no, it's at the very most it's a quasi-isobaric setup, which is a setup that is also being used in the Blessing 3, in the Hype 2, in the PENON 4, and a few other IEMs, but I've just selected these ones here. Anyway, this is the box of the KIWIEARS as usual. Very simple, nothing too, nothing too exaggerated, no waifus, nothing of the set, nothing of the sort. Just an interesting thing here, which is this mistake, the KIWIEARS quintet mistake here. I'm sure they must have noticed it was a mistake, but anyway. This is the box sleeve. On the back doesn't really say anything, doesn't really have much information, just some minor information here on the side, but very basic really. And then the box itself, oops, you open it up, the IEMs came over there, and then underneath that the carrying case, which is again very typical of KIWIEARS, this carrying case, a little bit on the generic side. The only issue that I really have with it is it's very, very small. So maybe with the stock cable, it'll be fine. But the moment you change the cable for a better one, it's going to be a little bit of a hard time. Anyway, it's got plenty of tips, although very generic. And the cable as well is a simple cable. I mean, after all, this is roughly $60 roughly. I guess you can't be too demanding. Although having said that, I think being KIWIEARS and being a brand that has carved a good name for itself over the last year, I think a nicer cable would have done it justice. Anyway, that's what it is. That's the accessories, the case, the cable, and all that stuff. Let me just put this away. Alrighty. Okay, they are available in a few colors. I got this bluish with a green version on it, and as again is the case with KIWIEARS, beautiful shell. I mean, they are really, really beautiful. They truly are stunning. The shell is transparent, which is always something I like seeing. And yes, we can see that clamshell configuration inside of the drivers, inside there. Okay, so there's no denying it. And then that single BA over there, which I am assuming it will probably be something like a 29689 from Knowles, or perhaps a similar one from that, or maybe a Sonian, who knows, maybe not at this price point. But anyway, it's a single BA doing the rest of the, or the majority of the upper mids and treble. I'm sure that the two bass drivers are not only just handling the bass frequencies, I'm sure they do go up a little bit into the mids as well. Tips, KIWIEARS, as I like using. Fit is flawless, nothing wrong with, nothing to be said about the fit. It fits beautifully into my ears. It's a relatively light IEM. Ergonomically, it's perfect. It's got a really nice build. It looks the part. It looks the business. And this cable that I got here from IVipQ just matches the IEM beautifully. Not only visually, but also in terms of its let's say characteristics that I always try and aim for. It's got those characteristics. If I'm not mistaken, it's got a 0.24 ohm resistance, which is pretty nice. And it just looks the part with the actual IEM. It just looks very nice. Anyway, that's the physical aspect of it. I used the Q15 for a lot of the listening, and I also used the my trusted NX7 with the KN RU7 and the Yuki. I also did some listening with the M1P from Colorfly and with the M15 from Q-Star. What did I then select here? I selected three IEMs to position this and not to be directly compared. The Blessing 3, roughly $300, $19 to be precise. The Audio Hype 2, $299, and the PENON 4, anywhere between $350 and $400. I believe the final price still hasn't been really finalized. They all use the same isobaric configuration, not isobaric, sorry, quasi-isobaric configuration. See there, okay? So the two drivers mounted in a clamshell fashion. That's a one. That's a two drivers and then plus 4 BAs. That's two drivers, two dynamic drivers plus 2 BAs, and this is 4 dynamic drivers. Two of those drivers mounted in that clamshell, and then another 8 and a 6 doing the handling the mids and the highs. On this side here, I've got 2 other IEMs that are more or less the same price, and that I personally like them quite a lot. One of them is the CCA Rhapsody, and 2 dynamic drivers separate to each other, one handling bass, one handling mids, and then 4 BAs. And then the Awashida, which again, it's got just 2 dynamic drivers, and it's an IEM that I honestly like it very much. This one and the Awashida and the RT R1, I think are 2 IEMs which are really good when it comes to these multiple DD drivers that have been coming out lately. Both of them are priced roughly at the same price as this, roughly between $50 and $60, depending when you get them. The Rhapsody is slightly cheaper in some places. I've seen it as low as $42. So they are within the price. So these ones, yes, I would say I would compare these 3 in a more thorough manner, while these ones is just to position this. All right. Anyway, what can I then say about the sound here of the Forteza? It's a V signature, or if you want to, in another fashion, you can say it's a really emphasized kind of harmonish kind of signature. Loads of bass and loads of upper mids and treble. The mids are slightly recessed, especially noticeable on the male vocals, which can be somewhat a little bit thin at times, but overall it's not offensive. Female vocals are got plenty of energy, and they sound fantastic. However, there is an issue there, which is because of the extra energy that the upper mids and treble have, and the way that it's been maybe purposely tuned. Once you start increasing the volume, and it's not that it doesn't scale half decently, it does, but they just become way too intense, and certain passages or certain music or certain songs, are just a little bit overly intense. For example, things like, let me just give you an example here. One of the songs that I liked using that showcases straight away very much that emphasis on that area there of 4, 5, 6K, which at least for me it can be sometimes problematic. It feels so good from Diana Reeves, and it sounds good at lower volumes and at mid volumes, but the moment you pass their certain volume level, it will become a little bit overly intense. I was able to counteract that slightly, that excessive energy, let's put it that way, by momentarily using foam tips, but the foam tips only really helped with that, and the rest of the sound actually was somewhat worsened by the usage of foam tips, and then by using something like the Q15, which is a warmer source. In that aspect, the the M1P from Colorfly is a cheaper alternative if you want something that's a little bit more on the warmer side, or then the Shio as well is a good enough alternative to try and control a little bit that area there of the frequency range. As for taking that aside, which is really the only major issue that I see, or significant issue that I see, the bass is very well done. I mean, the bass is better. It's obviously it's an emphasized bass. It's obviously this we are talking about a tuning which has been it's a color tuning, but funny enough, the bass is more interesting than the bass on the Blessing 3. It's a better bass here than in the Blessing 3. I would say the bass here is kind of trading blows on occasions with the bass of the Hype or with the bass of the Quattro, and I think that in itself, by itself, is already giving it really good praise. I'm really praising the bass because it is a well done bass. Now, is it perfect? No, it isn't perfect. And where you start seeing the differences between these three especially, and even the blessing, but these three especially in the bass is, if the passage is a little bit more complex, you see that the drivers here struggle to handle it. You also see that depending on the the energy of the specific song in terms of the bass can come across just a little bit too slow. But in, under normal listening conditions, let's say day-to-day listening outside, and you won't really be picking up those differences straight away. You'll eventually pick them up, but you won't say straight away, okay. Now, obviously, if you start doing a little bit more critical listening, then you start noticing it. Yes, the drivers in the hype, they are much more quality. They handle that layering in a much more precise manner. In the quattro, the same situation. I mean, the bass on these two is phenomenal. The bass of the blessing is very good quality wise. The only problem with the blessing 3 is it needs a little bit more energy, and that's where basically the blessing 3 has its flaw, is it needs a little bit more energy. But then again, I guess that was done on purpose because of the dusk version, which will eventually come out. So bass wise, it is in my opinion, a very good bass, especially when you consider the price, especially when you consider the sort of configuration they're using. The fact that they've been able to get this sort of bass at this price range, I think it's commendable. It definitely is. But yes, it does suffer from that little bit of lack of speed sometimes, and getting a little bit confused with its own self. Obviously, I'm comparing it here to IMs, which are significantly more expensive. I'll get to the cheaper ones in a second. The mids are basically already mentioned. I mean, female vocals are fine. It's the male vocals that are slightly recessed. Timbre and tonality is, for the most part, as well correct. I didn't really find anything that I would consider offensive. And then the extension up top. I guess the reason why they gave it the tuning that they gave above 4K with that emphasis on the upper mids and treble is precisely to counteract the bass to a certain extent, because the bass is very, very prominent. It's a very strong bass. So to be able to kind of not have an IM which would be overly dark, they gave it that energy. So, what is there is okay up to a certain volume where obviously you start seeing that it's a single BA, and you can't expect miracles from it. You can't expect it to keep up and be perfect. So it's acceptable. In terms of then the technicalities, a soundstage a little bit on the closed side. I didn't really consider the soundstage to be the biggest, but again, at the price, I guess it's not offensive. The detailed retrieval, the imaging, acceptable again, not ideal but acceptable. Detailed retrieval, once more acceptable. I think overall the best technical capability that it has is that the timbre and tonality is very nice. It's got a very fun, agreeable sound. It's very engaging, but I personally didn't find it to be technically something that can stand out, at least at mid to higher volumes. I will agree that at lower volumes, the technicalities that it offers and that extra energy that it has in that section of the 4, 5, 6, 7K area does make it sound a little bit more open than perhaps other IEMs. But we have to compare it as a whole. All the technical capabilities of an IEM good at low volume, mid volume, high volume, across the board. And honestly, although they are good at lower volumes, like I said, I don't think they are at the same level at mid and high volumes. So that's basically it. Compared then here with the Rhapsody and with the Aoshida. Well, both the Rhapsody and the Aoshida are, for what they are, exceptional IEMs. If we are going to look at that energy that the Forteza has, which is a little bit or somewhat detrimental to itself, do we have the same situation? These two, no, we don't. These two are significantly more tame, and the fact that we even have the switches here on the Rhapsody also help it. Now, does the Rhapsody or the Aoshida have the bass that the Forteza has? No, they don't. I mean, that's a single 8mm doing the bass frequencies. This is a 10. But interestingly enough, because of the way that they've tuned the Aoshida, I actually think that the low bass, the real sub bass rumble, is as good as the Forteza, with the benefit that it's cleaner. So it's an IM that is capable to scale better than the Forteza. Where it just loses to the Forteza is in the mid bass impact, that there could be a little bit more. So you notice that there's sub bass and then there's the rest of the frequency. The mid bass, the transition between the two, is a little bit subdued. Okay, something that, for example, in the Rhapsody doesn't happen, because the three main frequency ranges are very well done. They all scale very well, and the overall sound that you get from the Rhapsody is a very correct sounding IM. You know, if I have to be asked the question, which is probably the most versatile, is it the Rhapsody or the Forteza? I would say the Rhapsody. The Rhapsody, I think, will play more genres of music well, will be more satisfying. Technically as well, I found the Rhapsody to be slightly superior to the Forteza. Not a huge difference, but it is superior. It does have a slightly bigger soundstage, does have better imaging, does have slightly better detail retrieval. You know, and it's all down to those switches which you can play around with, and that alters the bass presence, and by altering the bass presence, then the mids and highs are able to shine. Compared technically with the Aoshida, I personally felt the Aoshida is again slightly superior to the Forteza. Not a huge difference, but it is better. It's got a better soundstage, it's got a better imaging, the detail retrieval is better as well. It's got a more correct timbre and tonality than this. But you know, let's make this perfectly clear, guys. I mean, the differences are never humongous differences which are going to be, no, they are differences that you will notice. They are differences that, depending on how the IEM inserts itself into your ear, what kind of music that you have, what source that you have, will be maybe more noticeable on some and less noticeable on others. But they all basically do what they were designed to do well. They all sound pretty decent, with their flaws and their positives. And you know, at the end of the day, this is the reality is this. You know, we reviewers, at least myself, we are bombarded with constant IEMs being released every day by the dozens, and you know, we would be naive to assume that there's going to be something that's actually groundbreaking coming out and it's priced at $50, or that is significantly better than another IM that is already very good at $50. And I say 50 as I could have said 100, or I could have said 500. No, that's a utopia. It's not gonna. There are the occasional IMs that do stand out, but then, you know, the majority of them, currently the reality is this: the majority of the IMs actually all sound pretty decent. Slight differences here and there, you know, preferences and so on, but they all sound pretty decent, and that's the situation. Yeah, so I'm not going to sit here now and tell you, no, the Forteza is way better than the CCA Rhapsody and way better than the Aoshida. No, I don't think that. I think that the Rhapsody, the Forteza has amazing bass, really good bass. At up to mid volumes, it actually has very nice and agreeable mids and highs, and it's a very fun and engaging IEM. It's very easy to listen to it. It doesn't fatigue you, but the moment you start increasing the volume a little bit, yes, it will at least, it fatigued me slightly in the upper mids and treble. There was just a piece of me, for example, from Canada Springs. It was just too intense, just way too much. Okay, but on the positive side, you know, it doesn't cost a lot of money, so I guess you cannot also complain. You know, the other two, the Rhapsody and the Aoshida, they also have their things. I mean, the Aoshida lacks a little bit of mid bass, which would have been nice if it had a little bit more mid bass to actually make things a little bit more engaging. But overall, it's not a very agreeable sound. It's a very easy. It's got a, I would say, a very mature sound for what they was able to do there as well. And the CCA Rhapsody, I think, honestly, it's one of the better IEMs that KZ has launched. End of story. You know, especially if you consider those IEMs that they launched recently, which were all dual drivers, the Caster and the Duo, and so the Rhapsody is the best one out of all. That's the reality. It's a very nice sounding IEM that is not going to not going to offend anybody. And if instead of saying CCA, if it said something else, if the brand that was there was another brand, I am sure that it would not cost $50. It would cost way more. All right. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now quickly the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Take care. Hi, guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the KIWIEARS Forteza. This is the graph of the Forteza. As you can see, huge bass. We're talking about a gain of the bass of 16 dBs almost, so huge bass. But funny enough, although it's got this huge bass, it doesn't ever come across in this, let's say, exaggerated fashion, at least not to my ears. And I guess you could attribute that to a smart way of the way in which they've tuned the bass not to be too bloated, and as well the fact that they also got quite a bit of energy here in the upper mids and treble. We're talking about a pinna gain of roughly 11.5 dB, so quite a lot of energy there. And also, let's not forget that a lot of that huge focus of that huge gain on the bass is below 50 hertz, where you don't really have a lot of information unless it's electronic music or something of the sort. But anyway, this is the graph of the Forteza. You can see that this area here, like I mentioned, the 4, 5, 6 is a little bit on the intense side. You would also see by the way the graph is done here that you could assume or could maybe think that technically it's going to be really good. I personally, like I said, I didn't really find it to be well, let's put it this way. For the price, I guess it's fine. The technicalities that it offers and can produce are very good. But when compared to other similar priced IEMs, like I did the Rhapsody and the Aoshida, I didn't find it to have technicalities that surpassed them in any way. Okay, so anyway, that's the graph of the Forteza. First one I'm going to show you here now. This is the graph of the Hype 2. The way the bass is very similar, but you notice straight away that the bass and the way that the bass comes across in the Hype 2 is a more mature, more polished kind of bass. And then the way that they've done as well, the upper mids and treble is more, let's say, more coherent, more balanced out. I would have liked just a smidge, a little bit more, treble a little bit more, but hey, that's just me personally. But otherwise, the Hype 2 is a very nice IM. I'm hoping to get my hands now soon on the Hype 4, so I've been hearing some pretty good things about it. Anyway, this is the Hype 2. The next one I'm going to show you now is the Blessing 3. And the Blessing 3, it's, I mean, you notice straight away that the amount of quantity that there is very reduced. The style of the bass is very similar, as you can see, and the style as well of the mids and upper mids and treble also quite similar. But because of the balance that is struck between the two, is completely different than in the Forteza. It comes across as a thinner sounding IM, as a more vocal centric IM. That's just the way it is. Otherwise, I mean, I don't dislike the Blessing 3. I've never disliked it. I just thought that this here could have been just a little bit lower, and that balance would have been struck in a much nicer fashion. But anyway, I guess the dusk will be precisely that. And then finally here, the Quattro. The Quattro, it does sound darker, definitely, than the Forteza does, and it does sound, let's say, more bassier. True, that is true, noticeable as well. That you would almost go as far as saying, oh, but it's way too much, it's muffling, it's mudding the mids and so on. So honestly, I didn't find that, and like I mentioned in my review of the Loki, you really get a true appreciation for how well that this bass on the Quattro has been done when you go from something like the Loki or similar to the Loki, or that level, and you drop down to the Quattro and you start saying, oh wow, well, they actually did this quite well, and it is very well done. That's the truth. When I compare these three, the Quattro, the Blessing, and the Hype 2 to the Forteza, the one thing that I can say is that yes, you do get in the Forteza a hint of what those IMs have been able to do with those dual bass drivers and their setup. You do get a hint of that, and obviously at a fraction of the price. And there are occasions even that the Forteza might even come across as more enjoyable, more agreeable. I'll be very honest. I mean, you listen to the Forteza and you listen to the Blessing 3, I think a lot more people will find the Forteza more interesting to listen to because of the way that it just is very engaging. Perhaps even the same situation might happen with the Quattro. The Quattro and well, a lot of the PENON products, they've got a very particular sound, a very particular house sound, and you either like it or you don't like it, understand? But anyway, that's those three, okay, the Forteza versus those three, not so much as who's the best, but for you to get a feel. And then compared here to the Rhapsody and to the Aoshida. This is the Aoshida. The Aoshida, you can see kind of reminiscing as well, the same sort of mids and so on, but at a much lower level. And the bass as well, done in a different fashion. Loads of sub bass, which is very noticeable, very noticeable. The amount of sub bass that you can actually get from the Aoshida is quite noticeable. What you do notice as well is then that there's a little bit lack of that mid bass impact or that slam. So there's that distinction between sub bass and then the rest. It's noticeable. On some songs maybe you won't feel it as much, but on a few you do notice. It doesn't offend me. It's kind of the same situation as happened a little bit with the variations. Actually, for the sake of just showing you, let me just show you the Moondrop, the variations, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Moondrop variations, here we go. Let me take away the, okay, that's the Moondrop, the variations, and let's align them. As you can see, very similar style between the Aoshida, the E20, and the variations. Very similar, very, very similar. Anyway, going back here to the Aoshida and the Forteza. I feel that the Forteza, although it might please maybe more people than the Aoshida offers a more mature sound. That's my opinion. It just offers a more correct sound, and the quality of the bass especially is better. It is, and the energy level that's been implemented here at the 4, 5, 6K area as well is a more correct level that matches the rest. So it just comes across, at least for me, as a nicer sounding IM. Not saying that the Forteza isn't nice. I mean, I prefer the Forteza to the Quartet, for example. You know, I prefer the Forteza in quite a few instances over the Quintet, which I didn't mention the Quartet and the Quintet when I was doing the review, because I didn't, you know, I wasn't, but just for you guys to see that the Forteza is a good IM. It is a good IM. It's not a bad IM, okay? And then finally, here with the Rhapsody, which is kind of like I'm not going to say the go-to, but it's one of the better IEMs at this price range of $50. It's got those tuning switches which straight away allow you to have this bass. I've got it's with all the switches up in this particular configuration, but you know, that allows you to clean up the bass and if you want to, and have a little bit more clarity in the mids and the highs. The mids and the highs are, in my opinion, very well executed. I mean, this is the sort of energy that I would have liked seeing the Forteza have, and I think that if it had this energy, it still wouldn't have made it sound dark or anything of the sort. It would still, and it would have been less fatiguing above all, especially at the higher volumes. And then the way that they've actually, although you would see similarities again in that past 10K extension, the Rhapsody just does have more soundstage, more imaging, more detail retrieval, better resolution. Not huge amounts more, but it does have more. It's the balance that's been struck. It's just a better balance, let's put it that way. Okay. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. If there's any questions you guys might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye-bye.